Are you in the market for a new house right now? Are you trying to figure out, hey, do I want to go with an old house that's been there for a while, or do I want to go with a brand new build? Which one's better? Which one's better for me? These are questions you may be asking yourself. And now that we're in a market where the buyer has a lot more power, a lot more control, it's more of a buyer's market right now than it's been the last 2 years. What are you going to do with that ability? Are you going to be able to decide which one is better? Well, before we just kind of took whatever came in front of us. If there was something available and we liked it, we bought it. Now we have 35 or 40 options sometimes on houses, and we need to whittle it down to maybe 10 or 15 we can look at in a weekend. Well, now you can kind of say, hey, I know I only want a new build, or I only want a established house that's been there for at least 7 to 10 years. We're going to get into the reasons why. We're going to kind of show you the pluses and minuses to each side and let you make your own decisions. It's a personal decision. Everybody has their own reasons why they choose one or the other. So stick around. We're going to get into that. Like and subscribe to our channel. It helps us grow the channel. It helps us get more videos in front of you so that you can get help with your real estate needs as you go. If you have any questions for us, leave it in the comments. You can contact us on idahopulse.com. And anyways, let's get into it. Let's get into the reasons why you would want a new build and the reasons why you may want to get something older. Okay, so what are some of the pros to buying something that's more established, something that's been around? I don't like using the word old house because I get visions of this old rickety house that's falling over. We're going to use something like established, something that's been there for like 10, 15, 20, 30 years, maybe a little bit more if it's been well taken care of. Something that is not a brand new build basically, or something that's been around for more than like 3 years. So one of the things that comes to my mind first is the size of the land. As the houses get newer, the land size shrinks, the lot sizes get smaller, more compact, the houses are kind of crammed next to each other. If you look at houses that were built in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, usually there's a really big gap between the houses, bigger backyards, bigger front yards. And also, if you're looking at houses that have been there for a while, there's a couple things with location. They tend to build communities outward from the center out, as you would imagine. If you watch any of our tour videos that we do, we definitely start in the middle and we kind of go outward, and you can just see the progression from older houses, older communities, and then as you go out, you start seeing newer communities being built, and that's definitely the case here in Idaho. The trees in the neighborhood, that's something. The houses that have been there for a while have really full trees, big, nice, lush trees and bushes. It's a really nice feel when you drive through a nice neighborhood that's been there for more than like 7 or 8, 9, 10 years. With houses that have been there for a little while, there's sometimes a little bit more availability. Depending on the area, you know, Idaho's a little bit of a different situation considering there's so much building and so much growth here. We do have a lot of new communities popping up. But in general, in real estate in general, like say if you're not in the Idaho area and you're watching this video, sometimes there's a lot more availability with houses that have been there for a while. Now that the market's changing for us and we're getting a little bit more of a buyer's market right now, you're going to see a lot more availability on houses that have been around for a little while. And also the last thing on the pro side for me would be the affordability. Sometimes you can get a little bit more bang for your buck on a house that's been around for a little bit longer. So you can actually use that extra money that you're saving to have somebody come in like a contractor or a handyman or something like that, and they can actually modify the house to however you like it. They can fix things, spruce it up, make something that's old look really new and more modern. So a lot of the cons are just things that you can't really upgrade that well. One of the things that comes to my mind is going to be the layout of the house. A lot of people nowadays like an open floor plan, something a little bit more open. You walk in, you feel like the space opens up. This is not something that's very easy to do. Sometimes you can knock a wall down if it's not load bearing or something like that. So that's one thing, is you're kind of stuck with the constraint of an older type design, older kind of layout. A lot of the older houses also have less storage space. So that's something that you should take into consideration. A lot of the new houses have a lot more storage, a lot more modern conveniences, stuff like that. Less energy efficient, that's another thing. If you are buying an older house, it may not be sealed as well as some of the new houses are, especially in an area like Idaho when it gets a little cold in the winter. Having it sealed real tight is going to help with energy, and then also just having the appliances be new, their energy efficient appliances, that kind of thing. Those are going to help you a lot in the wintertime, and in the summertime when it gets hot, you're going to have a little bit lower energy bills. And finally, you're going to have more maintenance. So if you're buying a house that's been there for a while, let's use 20 years for example, a lot of appliances like the heater, the air conditioner, the roof, those kind of things end up failing at around 20 to 30 years. So this is something that you're going to need to deal with if it hasn't already been dealt with. And that's something that, a home inspection can tell you as well. But just knowing that the house is brand new versus old, you know that if it's old, it is something that's going to have things that are failing, and you're going to have to be chasing those problems down. Okay, so now let's get into the pros of buying a new build. So one of the things, as you might imagine, is it's brand new. You're buying something where everything in the house is brand new. You're not going to necessarily have to deal with maintaining or fixing something that breaks right away. Now, I will tell you, as someone who actually bought a brand new house recently, there are things that fail in a brand new house. There are things that were maybe not done correctly, things that were installed incorrectly. You might find blemishes as you live there, but typically there's at least a 1-year warranty, and that's something you'd want to go over with the builder before you buy the house, is how long is the warranty and how is it covered, how is it dealt with, who do I contact, that kind of stuff. Another thing, depending on the builder again, and when you buy it in the building process, there is a lot of customization that you can do. You can choose the flooring color a lot of times, the cabinet colors, the wall colors, the trim. You can choose a lot of the options. You can add things onto the house that you maybe couldn't add later. You can put wiring in the walls, that kind of stuff. If you buy a house at the beginning stages when it's just sticks, you can actually choose a lot of the things. And again, this has a little bit to do with the builder. The builders, they say, hey, this is a spec house, take it or leave it. This is the way it is. And that's kind of the way it was before when the market was really hot. Right now, there's a lot of lots here in Idaho that are just blank and barren, that are waiting for someone to come in and buy before they build. That's going to give you, as the buyer, the opportunity to customize the house and make it your dream home if you're willing to be patient enough to wait. Another thing, which was a con on the older side, is a plus on this side, which is the energy efficient part of it. So these new houses, like the house that I just bought, is sealed like crazy. When you open up a window, it might be 30 degrees outside, but as long as there's no airflow, you haven't opened up a window on the other side of the house, that cold air doesn't come in. The house will be 70 and it'll be 30 outside. Another thing with new builds is less maintenance, so you're not going to have to deal with things constantly needing to be maintained, not for a long time at least. So that's definitely a plus if you're one of those people that want to set it and forget it. You're going to move in and just live in it. That's one thing that a new build is going to accomplish for you. Finally, the property value on a brand new build in a few years is going to hold its value better than something that was maybe built a little while ago. Now let's move on to the cons of buying a brand new house. Typically, buying a brand new house is a little more expensive than buying something that's a little bit older. Again, this wasn't necessarily the case for the last few years. They were kind of on par just because the market was so hot. But we are transitioning more into a buyer's market. And so the prices of houses that have been around for a little while, older houses, is definitely going to have to be compensated downward to get people interested. With new builds, a lot of times there's less room for negotiation. Again, in the past, there was no negotiation, but now we're seeing a little bit more. But, if the house hasn't been built yet or it was just built, you may not be able to get a lot of money off this. The builder has expenses they've put into this. Material costs are really high right now. Land costs, they probably paid a premium for it when they bought the land. And so you might not get a lot of negotiation unless the house has been sitting for a long, long time and the builder is just desperate to get out from underneath it. You may not have a lot of wiggle room on the price. And finally, the last two things is going to be the location. Might be somewhere kind of off in the distance. Maybe it's a field that was just turned into houses, kind of way off in the distance. And then the time to build the house. That's another big one. And I alluded to this earlier. If you're buying a house that's being built and it sticks right now, you can expect anywhere from 6 months to 8 months between when you buy that house and it's just being built, all the way to the time when you move into it. So you may have to rent a house for a year. So that's just something to keep in mind. You may not have the ideal ready move-in location if you're buying something new. It just depends on what you're looking at. Another thing that people may not take into consideration is the cost of insurance, of homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance is typically 45% less on a home that was built within the last 10 years than a home that's older. Okay, and so finally, one thing I wanted to bring up was resale value. Majority of home buyers are now looking for new builds. 41% of people are looking for new builds or stuff that was built in the fairly recent past. Okay, so hopefully that helped you out. Hopefully that gave you some insight into reasons why you may want to look at buying a new house and maybe some of the reasons why you may want to avoid buying a new house. Maybe you're going to look at some older houses. Maybe the neighborhood being more established is a really big deal to you. You want to feel like you're in that established neighborhood. Maybe you want the bigger lot sizes, something like that. Or maybe you really just want a new house. You love that feel of getting into a new house and experiencing that new house feel and the smell and all that kind of stuff. So these are all things to keep in mind. Glad you watched the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you could like and subscribe again, that helps us out. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, or you can contact us at idahopulse.com, and we will see you next time. Thank you.